Hello everyone, Nordic Beast here, and welcome back to the 50th episode of the Shipyard. So today I'm going to show you guys all the small ships I've been working on the last couple of months. I believe one of them might have actually been in a previous episode, I honestly don't recall, but it matches the theme of what's going on here. So we have the new Midgard Shipyard that I showed, which by the way, I'm sorry, my voice is still gone, I still sound pretty awful, I'm sorry. If I'm sniffling and coughing, I really apologize. So, I'm going to spotlight some drones and some other small ships I've been working on. So, alright, we have a light glitch going on here still. So, please try to ignore that. I apologize. Alright, so first off is this ugly thing here. This is the Black Betty. Now, Black Betty is a completely analog heavy lift rocket system. It's my first prototype of it. So as you see, it's got a large cargo container here, and then it's hydrogen powered. We have hydrogen generators up there, hydrogen thrusters back here, along with ion thrusters galore. So the idea is this uses a series of timers that's down here, and what it does is it'll fly for, say, 30 seconds on full power. And then that's first timer. Second timer will cut it down by 25% thrust for another 30 seconds. Cuts it down by another 25% down to 50% thrust. Stays that way for, I believe, 6 minutes. And it'll run out of hydrogen thrust in the meantime, but as it launches, the large ion thrusters are on full blast. So as it takes off, it will have enough thrust to break atmo, while carrying a very large payload in the front. But this was kind of tiny. It was more a proof of concept. I wanted to make sure it could do it. Now the reason I have it do all these weird things, with timers and such, and that looks weird like that. But anyway, was the remote block acts a little weird with autopilot while still in gravity. It wants to go parallel to the ground as opposed to launching vertically. So it's a little wonky. So my best bet was to use combination hydrogen ion, get out of the gravitational influence, and then it'll autopilot as soon as it gets out of the gravitational influence through a variation of timers. It'll turn on the autopilot and it'll fly the cargo load to you. Then it'll be in your general area, and eventually you can send it back. You can tell it to fly. You could put ice in it, tell it to fly back where it was going, and it has parachutes. So you can manually fly it, or you could just give it the GPS coordinates and just let it go. And the flight back isn't that big a deal because, again, it's got parachutes, so it can just whoop, turn, and land. And then the person on the ground can go get it. No big deal. So that being the first prototype, this is the second prototype. A much bigger, heavy lifting, and in many ways a bit more practical design. The Black Betty did not... It flew for the right amount of time, but didn't really lift all that much. You know, do you even lift, bro? So it's got the one large and the two small hydrogen thrusters. This one, I went all out. I wanted to make sure this motherfucker worked. So as you notice, it has 9 small ion thrusters, as well as 4 large hydrogen thrusters, and the 2 large ion. I wanted to keep that, which I really like the look of that. It's kind of got like a Thunderbird's look to it, doesn't it? So it does have these little hydrogen thrusters on the side. That's just to mildly help keep it in place. It's not really, they're just not necessary, to tell you the truth. I guess a little bit for re-entry, because you'd be most likely manually flying it. But as you notice, it's very similar. It's got the merge block on the front, we got our parachutes up here, you got the main control head mound up here, and all our timers. Runs on the same principle, just of a lessened thruster amount. It'll fly, say, like 20 seconds on full power, and then 20 seconds on 50% power, and then it'll switch over to like 30% power. And this thing gets to about 18 to 20K on a full load. I've launched this thing at, I think empty, this thing launches at around 50,000 kilograms. I've launched it at around 120, and it did not accelerate very fast. But it was able to just break the atmo, and then it literally gets to just on that in between of where the large ion thrusters are enough to get it to where it will go under just that power and not hydrogen. The hydrogen runs out around 18 to 20K, and then it'll start to decelerate, even with the ions in full power. And then all of a sudden, it'll begin to accelerate, even on a full load. Like between 18 and 20K, it'll slow down, and then you'll see that number will start to stop, and then it'll start to accelerate, and off it goes. And then it'll just get to the edge of the gravity well when the remote block kicks on with autopilot, and so I adjusted it after testing so that it'll just get out of that gravity well, turn on, and off it goes. And it's very slow, especially with a full payload. But I mean, the idea is, I remember about a year ago, me, Izzy, Fifth, Dracul, Wiseman, and Wizard were all playing a survival game together. And we still have the save for it. It's really fun. I really enjoyed it. And Izzy started building a space base. Like, he launched we actually landed in a ship called the Death Drop, started building a ground station. It was awesome. We started doing these explorations. It was really cool. And then Izzy was like, I'm going to start a space station. So he built a hydrogen rocket and took off. Well, it got me thinking, well, what if he needed supplies? That's basically where this thing comes in. It's meant to launch a heavy amount of material into orbit to a space station from the ground, because you can get a lot of material on a planet. You can mine tons and tons of material. How are you going to get it up there? Something like this is perfect. Hey, I need 30,000 steel plates. Not a problem. Boom, you load this thing up, launch it up into orbit, tell it where to go, and you'd be like, hey, in about 15 minutes you're going to get a shipment of 30,000 steel plates. Enjoy. Just send it back to its GPS when you're done. And then it comes back. And that's the entire idea behind this thing. Now, I used to have, I should look this up real quick, cargo drone. There we go. This is an old design. Some of you who've followed me for a long time may recognize this. This is in NID Server Season 2. I had this at my shipyard there. Sorry about the blinking lights. God, that drives me nuts. It basically just has a couple cargo containers inside, runs off small reactors, timers, and a button. And basically what I would do is I live 26K from the center of the map. And anytime somebody would need supplies, which was usually Sal, I would send her supplies via this thing. It would go to a waypoint, it would wait about 10 minutes, and then come back to me. And it was very simple, which I wouldn't mind redoing this, which, well, I sort of did, but we'll get to that. So this is kind of in the same vein, only for planetary to orbit use. So, all right, next up is this guy here. This, I didn't actually name it. Everybody else did. Kindle drone. So it's kind of like the Amazon drone. But it's atmospheric powered, but it's actually very underpowered. And it's heavy, so these directional thrusters don't do much. But the idea is it's supposed to lift very heavy loads in atmosphere. It's kind of a little flying crane for you. It's not maneuverable. It's not meant to do anything but just lift, bro. That's it. And it was more of a proof of concept, but sorry, I just whacked my mic. I know that Izzy and Fifth both really like this. I think Lacarthian liked this one too. So, but not much to it. It's very simple, very straightforward. Which does have cargo, doesn't it? Yeah, medium cargo container, which is right in between these two here. Yeah. So you dock it, charge it, and then you can carry whatever needs to be carried. But yeah, it's not easy to handle. Alright, next up is this little welder drone here, which is upside down. Let's fix that. Alright, I made this guy recently because of my SRS cruiser I showed in the last episode. I thought it would be nice to have something like this. So you could dock this, like, in the hangar in an SRS, say like the spare hangar that's in the back, which I'll get to in a future episode. I realized I didn't really show much of that. But there is like a storage hangar. And this thing would be very easy to dock, or you could put a landing gear on it if you wanted. But it doesn't fit through doorways like I would like, but it's still very compact, very small. And it's just a simple drone welder. You just sit in your ship where you're safe, and you send this guy out to go weld, spot weld, whatever needs to be welded. It's not really meant to build ships as much as repair them. So, very simple, very straightforward. Now this little guy here, he was actually in the last episode. Now let's go ahead and see if we can find him. Ripsaw drone. I hope this is the right one. I think I got one floating outside. Yep, okay, it's the right one. And you see here, which, by the way, antenna range for small ships is now out to 50K. Used to be 5 kilometers. Now it's 50 kilometers, making satellites, small ship satellites, very usable. And also, Ceph, I recently saw, you can use different large to small grid add-ons to put a small ship antenna onto a large ship that's, say, inside your ship, and it's equally as effective running on less power. So, nice backup antenna. So anyway, this little guy was designed for holding objects, which, go ahead and, I'm like, oh, hi, Mr. Drone, I can just run up and boop, grab you, and start pulling you around if I want, do whatever. And this thing is, oh, it's angry. This thing's actually going against that thing's thrusters. That's the Lady Hawk, by the way. But it's meant to hold on to ships that are going to be ground down by the Ripsaw, which is why this is the Ripsaw drone. But it also is meant to be able to go through doorways. So if I wanted to... Oh, I can't go through that because there's a regular door there. Is that one open? No. But it fits through sliding doors like that one there. So the idea is you go salvage a ship, and you can send this thing in with a crew member to, get a camera feed to come back to, whoever's running the ship. There we go. We got a nice spotlight on there, and then actually, just do this directly. Say you don't want to use the spotlight, right? Let's go ahead and turn that off. Then we have these lights for just illuminating the area, and that's less blinding for the camera, and it's less blinding for whoever's walking with this. It just lights up the area instead of everything. So it's a handy little drone, very cheap, easy to build, easy to replace. I freaking love this thing, and it runs off of one reactor, which is sitting on the back. So, all right, next up, the Lady Hawk, this little drone. This literally came from, can I build it? It was as soon as... There's Lady Hawk. As soon as I realized the antennas now go out to 50K, I'm like, oh, I could build a transatmospheric drone, that could land on a planet. And the idea is, this is a scout. That's all it is. It's just meant to, you got your ship up in orbit, you bring it partially into the gravity well to give yourself a little leeway, a little wiggle room, and you fly this little guy down to take a look at at what's going on the planet. So say you see a potential base, or I believe I did put didn't I put an ore detector on here? If not, it needs one, because that would be a big thing. Or nope. Alright, so it needs an ore detector, because this thing is a great little scout. It's battery powered. It can fly for about an hour or so of continual use. And that's with the antenna turned up all the way. So yeah, I'll have to find a spot on here for the ore detector. Who knows? Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty. Oh, let's go and turn my lights back on. Hey, at least this way you can kind of see how much room that aura kicks on there. I am so sorry about my nose. Oh god, this is just killing me. I even took some meds too. Anyway, I was working on this with Fifth a while back, and it actually had what was it? Rotor-mounted pylons to be able to drop small payloads. And then I just dropped the idea. I'm like, I'm not worried about that. Let's just keep it simple. Make it a scout. Who knows? Maybe I'll do like something in between this and the Kindle drone. So kind of a combination between the two for a lifting delivery drone. We'll see. But this thing actually handles pretty well in atmosphere, except for vertically. Like, it is a little anemic, but it's on the edge of how much it can use power-wise. It's a little heavy for being a drone, anyway. But it has enough thrust to get out of the atmosphere without problem. So, it's a pretty fun little ship to fly. Now, this guy here, what did I name this thing? The Prometheus. It is based off of a ship that I saw in... I can't remember if it was just the vanilla game or if it was in the Grand Exploration mod, but it's called the Hyperion. Feel free to look it up on the workshop. Actually, you know what? Let's do that right now. Let's close this. Bam. Maybe? Or can I... There we go. Workshop. Go to the workshop. Let's look up the Hyperion. Hyperion. Cargo drone. Okay, it must be in the Enhanced Exploration mod. But anyway, feel free to look it up in there, which I have ships in this mod, and this mod is just amazing. So I found the Hyperion, and it's got a similar layout, where it's kind of got these like ribbing arms, and then it's got this extended front. But the Hyperion is much larger than the Prometheus. I really like the idea, and I wanted to make something a little smaller and more practical. I didn't like the Hyperion all that much, but I did like the idea behind it. So this one's all medium cargo containers. That one was like large, like big, large cargo containers, and it felt very underpowered too. So this is supposed to do the same thing as that, only in space. Now it does have parachutes on it, just in case it enters a gravity well, can't get out, and it's got to land. So those are just emergency use. Which actually I need to adjust these because that doesn't work anymore. So I can do, this. Boop, like that. Which, same thing on the underneath, but it's got one large ion thruster up and down. It's got one here, and it's got two large back here. And then on the sides, it has the small ones. Which, that's the only anemic areas in yaw. I did actually at one point make a piloted variant of this. This is kind of cool. Had no oxygen tank on it, but it did have a cockpit like mounted right here. It's pretty cool. But I unfortunately did not save it. So we have our jumpstart reactor right there. And overall, I'm pretty happy with this thing. And it's got landing gear on the sides too for, docking and servicing and whatnot. And this thing would be pretty useful for carrying cargo out to basically, from station to station. And actually, there's a story behind this. Fifth has this, and Dracul and Fifth had been playing on a survival server, and they were really far apart. I can't remember the distance, but it took this thing 3 hours to go the distance. So you go ahead and do the math at 100 meters a second. Anyway, he sent this out fully loaded to Dracul with supplies. 3 hours later, he got it. Sent on autopilot. I'm like, that is awesome. Made me very happy to hear that. So, yep. So that's basically my drone section. next up, I am so sorry about all these lights. Some of these are covered, some of these aren't. This has been posted. This one's the Gideon, right? Yes, the Gideon. So the Gideon and the Lucille are actually named after two of my girlfriend's tattoos. She has little robots, and they are named Gideon and Lucille. And they are supposed to be robots in love, but they can't touch because they're little robots. And I think it's adorable. And so I named two ships after her tattoos. So the Gideon is it's reactor powered, transatmospheric, and it's basically meant to just be a simple cargo run ship from surface to planet, planet to surface. Just, if you want to do it by yourself. It has one medium cargo container inside and can actually carry a pretty good payload. Now, its main issue is lack of reverse thrust. But basically, just turn this thing around and it's fine. Now, the Lucille, which I believe has been in previous episode, but the Lucille is a 6-person with medium cargo container, heavy lift kind of transport. This thing is meant to really go the distance. It's reactor powered. It's more for exploration and carrying cargo and people down to a planet. Like it's much bigger, meant to do a lot more. This is meant more for limited cargo space, which I've actually used this with my Ericsson Explorer mounted on the side of the Explorer, and this would be my go down to planet ship. So after building these two, I ended up building the Venture, this lovely lady here, which is kind of in between the two. The Venture carries, I think this one's got a medium cargo container, right? Yep, medium cargo container. It can carry 4 people as well as a pilot, and it's pretty good size. Now, originally, I thought about using this for my SRS competition, but it's too big to fit in my SRS cruiser, which I had already built before I built the shuttle, which is why I built the Grendel, which is much smaller. But the Venture, originally, I will show you, Venture was built, let's go with this one, as like a policing ship. Go ahead and pull this in. Can I please? There we go. So it's got the 2 cannons on top. It's got the rocket launcher in the nose. This does 4 seats, and it has lights, and it's all connected to a timer with a sound block and a beacon. So turn it on. Oop, sorry. As you see, the lights are going. The beacon says this is the police, and now the weapons are turned on. Otherwise, if you shut that off, the weapons are also shut off. So you can't just pop up and shoot somebody. You have to turn on that timer to turn everything on. And it's meant to be like an in-server policing ship. So if you were to run a server and say you wanted to really roleplay a policing force, you have the Venture. So that's my police variant. But then I decided I wanted a non-military variant. That's what this is. Now, does this one still have... No, okay. I had... Originally, it had a bunch of parachutes, but it was not nearly enough for the size of the ship. Oh, stupid nose. Sorry. And last but not least, of course, is the Grendel, which now meets the same qualifications except for no cargo container, and it's battery powered. The Venture is reactor powered. Now this thing, real quick, side note, the Venture and the Gideon can land on any planet. The Lucille cannot land on the moon, not on Luna. It does not have enough vertical ion thrust to do it. So that's kind of a negative on this one, but it's really meant to be used for Mars, Earth, and the alien world. On the vacuum of Luna, it's kind of lacking. So the Venture, on the other hand, can't carry a lot of cargo for that, but it can. In atmosphere, handles great. The only area it's really anemic is vertically and horizontally. It only has the 4 thrusters, 4 up, 4 to either side. Acceleration and deceleration is really nice because of the large amount of ion thrusters, so which kind of makes up for the Gideon's lack of reverse thrust. But I love the Gideon. I think that thing's so cool. So with the Grendel, let's see, originally made this little guy, the mirror, which the mirror doesn't quite work right anymore because it has a door. That door. As you notice, it kind of, yeah. So that door doesn't really work. So as you see, it had a door that would pop open and then lock into place. Fit 2 crew members back here. Now, the original design behind this thing was actually hydrogen ion and atmospheric thrust. Like, I wanted to see if I could make just this tiny little transatmospheric ship. And then eventually I realized I could just do it with large ion thrusters. They produce enough thrust on this small of a ship that you can actually fly around an atmosphere with it. Pretty cool. So I made the Mimir, or I'm sorry, this is the Mir, and then the Lamprey shuttle was a rebuild of it. As you can see, they're near identical, but this one has no door. So instead, it has that little covering in the back, which I think is pretty nice. So it's still open, so you can reach the 2 seats. Can I reach that seat anymore? Yeah, there you go. There we go. But it got me thinking, like, you could do more. And like I said, originally I wanted to use this for the SRS, but too big. Way too big. It actually does technically fit into the Harriet's hangar, but it takes up most of the hangar, like in width and all that. So I wanted something smaller, and then I thought of this, and I'm like, well, this doesn't have enough room, so why don't I do something similar? So I still went with the little side cockpits. So as you see inside, and this allows you to carry, crew members. Not really much in the way of cargo. Now this one also lands on Luna. As you see, it has extra thrusters underneath. Got 4 back there and 2 up here. Well, I think it only has 4 on top. It's got 2 on either side, which is a little anemic. And it's got 6 reverse, also a little anemic, but it's a very tiny, tiny ship. For takeoff, however, it has plenty. Now, it does have the 2 large ion, but it has 2 small atmospheric as well, to really get you going. And it has atmospheric side thrusters, which actually, let's see, the Leech being the more advanced version of my Mir design. It's called the Leech, or I'm sorry, not the Leech, the Lamprey, because originally this is what I used on the side of the Ericsson until I made the Gideon over there. So, alright, whoops. This is 19,000 kilograms. This is 24. So this still is bigger, but it carries 2 extra passengers, can land on Luna, and they're fully oxygenated as well, and it has a lot more thrust. So it's got the rear atmospheric and side atmospheric thrusters. Well, this one does too. The Mir did not. You kind of had to just handle it yourself, which I think this one actually has an internal reverse atmospheric thruster too to help slow you down. So these are the small ships I have been working on. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you liked the episode, please hit that like button. I'll see you guys next time.